Welcome to the Uncanny Valley podcast, where we explore the fascinating frameworks that shape our understanding of complex systems, from the intricacies of human perception to the hidden mechanics that drive our narratives. Today, we're doing something really interesting. We're pulling back the curtain on a tool that might seem a bit niche, maybe, but actually offers profound lessons in storytelling, character development, and, well, decision-making under pressure. We're looking closely at a tabletop role-playing game rulebook. Our subject is the Modern AGE Basic Rulebook. And before you start picturing, dice and dragons, let me assure you, this isn't just about fantasy realms, not at all. It's a meticulously crafted system, really designed to create rich, immersive narratives set firmly in the modern world, or even detailed historical eras. So our mission today is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from this rulebook. Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to understanding how these comprehensive frameworks are actually built, how they guide diverse narratives, and crucially, how they empower both the creators of these stories, the game masters, and the participants, the players. You're about to uncover some surprising facts about narrative design, character psychology, and the art of shared storytelling, all distilled into, hopefully, easily digestible insights. Prepare for some genuine understanding that might just reshape how you think about dynamic systems. When I first looked at this rule book, what immediately grabbed my attention was how elegantly it systematizes so many elements of classic storytelling, everything from daring escapes to tense interrogations. But what really jumped out at me, it was this idea of different modes you can play in. It completely shifts the narrative's inherent tone.
That's a perfect observation. It really is. Because a rule book like Modern AG, it isn't merely a set of instructions, right? It's more like a sophisticated toolkit for collaborative narrative. It provides a shared language, a flexible structure, allowing players and a game master to collectively build a unique world and story.
Yeah.
And the critical question it answers, I think, is how can a system enable such boundless creativity while still providing clear guidance and, a consistent framework?
It truly is a delicate balance, isn't it? And understanding it, I think, starts with the absolute core of how actions unfold in this system, the
Yeah.
very engine that drives everything, from a tense negotiation all the way to a high-speed chase.
Mm-hmm.
At the heart of every action a character attempts, there's a pretty straightforward 3d6 system. So players roll 3 six-sided dice, simple enough, and to that total, they add their character's ability score and any relevant focus, which we'll definitely dive into shortly.
Yeah, we'll get there.
The goal is simple. Roll high enough to meet or beat a target number set by the game master. It's a classic mechanic, really, but then they add this ingenious twist.
Indeed, and that twist is the stunt die.
Yeah.
It's quite clever. One of the 3d6 dice rolled should be, a different color or somehow visually distinct. And this die becomes crucial because if any two of the 3 dice show the same number doubles, as they're often called, and the action succeeds, then the value shown on that distinct stunt die generates stunt points, or SP. This simple addition transforms what could be just a basic success into something potentially extraordinary. It injects immediate narrative flair.
Right. So these stunt points, they aren't just like a numerical bonus tacked on. They actually allow heroes to perform special moves and exceptional feats, things beyond a simple success. It's almost like hitting a critical success that suddenly opens up this menu of cool cinematic options.
Exactly.
This system turns simple dice rolls into these miniature narrative moments. It adds layers of tactical choice and dramatic impact that let players truly feel they're influencing the story beyond just pass-fail.
Precisely. And the rulebook provides a pretty detailed list of how these stunt points can be spent. It transforms a mere success into a real tactical advantage, or maybe a dramatic flourish.
Oh.
For instance, with just one or more stunt point, a character can perform a skirmish. This allows either themselves or their target to move 2 yards. Now, that's incredibly useful for tactical repositioning in combat, right? Maybe slipping past an enemy guard or getting an ally into cover quickly.
Yeah, that little bit of movement can change everything.
It really can. And spending 2 stunt points allows you to knock prone an enemy. This directly affects subsequent melee attacks against them. So it's not just flavor text. It has a direct mechanical impact on the flow of combat. It adds real strategic depth to every successful hit.
And what about those moments where you really need your hit to count, like make a real impact?
Well, for 2 stunt points, you can deliver a vicious blow. This inflicts an extra 1d6 damage. So it's not just about connecting, it's about hitting with undeniable force. It amplifies the impact of an attack, makes every successful strike feel, weighty.
Gives it that punch.
Definitely. And for something maybe more defensive, more tactical, there's brocade. That costs 3 stunt points. This allows a character to move up to 3 yards and physically position themselves between a foe and an ally. It actually forces the enemy to pass a test just to get past them. It's a very active way to protect your teammates and control the battlefield space.
That's clever. And you mentioned the environment.
Yes, collateral damage. Also 2 stunt points. This describes destroying environmental objects specifically to create obstacles for foes. So imagine blasting a water pipe to flood a corridor, making it slippery, or smashing a bookshelf down to create a makeshift barricade. This transforms the surroundings into a dynamic part of the conflict. It makes the environment feel like another character in the fight almost.
The genius of the system, I think, is that it's not just about whether you hit or miss. It's about how you hit, or how you succeed at anything, really. This whole approach turns simple dice rolls into these little narrative moments, adding layers of tactical choice and dramatic impact. It's a remarkable way to ensure every success feels earned and, well, meaningful.
And beyond the immediate action, the moment-to-moment stuff, defining a character's fundamental capabilities is, of course, crucial. The rulebook outlines a precise framework built upon 9 core abilities. These represent a character's raw potential, their innate talents. You've got accuracy for aim, particularly with ranged weapons. Communication, covering social influence, persuasion, deception. Constitution, for health and resilience. Dexterity, for agility and coordination. Fighting, for close combat prowess.
And the mental side.
Right. Then there's intelligence, for reasoning, knowledge, problem-solving. Perception, for sensory awareness, seeing, hearing, noticing things. Strength, for raw muscle power. And finally, willpower, which covers self-control, mental fortitude, resisting influence. These 9 really form the fundamental building blocks of any character.
And I find the concept of ability focuses particularly insightful here. It adds another layer, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a great way to specialize. Within each of these broad abilities, characters can have ability focuses. These are specific areas of special expertise that grant a significant +2 bonus to relevant tests. So they allow for this really fine-tuned specialization. It ensures that a character isn't just generally good at something like intelligence, but has honed a specific skill within that.
Can you give some examples?
Oh, sure. Under intelligence, for example, you could have focuses ranging from the very academic, like anthropology or astronomy or history, to highly practical skills. Things like cryptography or explosives or engineering, computers, medicine. The list is quite extensive. This incredible breadth allows for a level of specialization that truly mirrors real-world expertise. It makes sure that a smart character isn't just, generically smart. They have specific areas of deep knowledge.
And it goes beyond just the intellectual pursuits, too, right? It applies across the board.
Indeed, yeah. For perception, focuses include things like empathy for discerning feelings, or the more direct senses like hearing, seeing, searching, tracking. These are granular distinctions that truly inform how a character perceives and interacts with the world around them. And under willpower, you see focuses like courage for overcoming fear, faith for inner strengths or belief, morale for inspiring groups, and self-discipline for controlling impulses. This level of detail allows for a really nuanced portrayal of a character's mental landscape, their inner strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, so how are these initial abilities and these focuses actually determined when you're making a new character? Is it random?
It's a mix. Players roll 3 6-sided dice, so 3d6, 9 times to generate the raw ability scores. These rolls will range from 3 to 18. These raw rolls are then translated into the actual numerical ability scores, the modifiers, using a table provided in the book. So an 11 might give you a +1 bonus, for instance. What's particularly insightful, I think, is that after generating all 9 raw scores, players get to strategically swap any 2 of them. This offers a crucial choice right there at the start of character creation. It allows players to shape their character's innate talents a bit more toward the concept they have in mind.
Oh, so you have some control.
Exactly. It's not purely random chance. And this whole system highlights how a framework can distinguish between raw talent, the base ability score, and trained expertise, the focus. The ability score is that raw potential, but the focus is where you've specifically honed that talent. It offers a really granular approach to character skills. It just ensures that every character feels distinct right from the ground up, moving beyond just being a collection of raw numbers.
That distinction between raw talent and honed expertise is definitely a core part of what makes each character feel unique, right from the moment they're conceived. But, a character is far more than just a collection of numbers on a sheet.
Oh, absolutely.
And the game truly emphasizes the person behind the numbers, focusing on character creation and identity in a very holistic way. We're talking about their goals, ties, and relationships. These elements seem absolutely crucial for personalizing the adventure and giving players genuine investment in the unfolding narrative.
Absolutely crucial. Characters are strongly encouraged, almost required, to have both short-term and long-term goals. A short-term goal might be something immediate and practical, like, say, making it as a private investigator, which grounds them in the current narrative, gives them something to do now. But then there are those long-term goals. These can be much grander, more driving, like rooting out the conspiracy within the police department that maybe got them framed in the first place. These aren't just, background flavor text. They provide vital narrative hooks and character motivation. They really drive the player's choices and actions throughout a whole campaign. And the collaborative aspect is also really central here. Characters are encouraged to define at least one tie to each other, player character. This establishes pre-existing connections right away.
So they know each other already.
Often, yeah. Or they have some history. This could be something as simple as having worked with a fellow player character on a previous case. Or, given the potential for less than legal inclinations in some modern games, having even investigated or maybe even arrested them, this immediately creates a dynamic within the group, weaving this web of inter-character relationships right from the very start of play.
And building on those initial ties, the system introduces something called relationships with a capital R. These sound like deeper, more significant connections, and they're measured by intensity of bond, which reflects the strength and nature of that connection. The rulebook provides some really vivid examples that bring this concept to life. Like, imagine an intensity 1 bond described as, I would risk my life for this person. That's not just affection, right? It's a powerful emotional tie, maybe even contractual.
It could be.
And it can compel heroic or maybe even foolish actions. Conversely, you can have a negative bond, like, I will not stop until you are dead, driven by deep-seated rivalry or bitter betrayal. The narrative implications of a bond like that are immediate and compelling. It just adds layers and layers of personal drama.
And what's particularly fascinating, I think, and really a testament to the system's depth, is the concept of self-centered relationships. Characters can actually have relationships with themselves, reflecting things like narcissism or maybe deep-seated trauma. For example, a bond might be phrased as, I am only strong when I don't need anyone else, or perhaps, you can't trust anyone.
Wow.
While these can be powerful motivators for a character, the rulebook wisely notes that using them in play can come with potential social penalties. It draws attention to their impaired ability to care about other people. It's a subtle but important mechanic.
That's quite a psychological twist. Can you give us a practical example of how these relationships might form between player characters in a game?
Certainly. Let's consider Steed's character. Maybe he's an ex-cop with a prosthetic arm, still dealing with the fallout of being framed by his old department. A classic setup. He could form an intensity 1 bond with, say, Alamon's character, who happens to be mechanically inclined, maybe a tech expert or engineer. The bond might be based purely on trust and necessity. Alamon's character is the one who can fix and maintain Steve's complex prostheses. This makes it a practical connection for sure, but also potentially a deeply trusting one. It forms this bond of mutual aid and, eventually, maybe loyalty. It isn't just a transactional relationship, it's a simulated dependency that really deepens their interaction and role-playing potential.
The genius here, it seems, is that this isn't just about what your character does, but who they are and, crucially, who they care about or maybe don't care about. These elements create this intricate web of personal drama that ensures the stakes are always high, not just for the world or the mission, but for the characters themselves, personally.
Yes, the personal stakes.
It's a fantastic way to ensure every player is deeply invested in the narrative. It transforms mere game pieces into living, breathing, dramatic engines for the story.
And building on that foundation of identity and relationships, the rulebook also defines how characters don't just, spring from nowhere. They have history. Their background provides a starting point, influencing their early life and personality. This is determined through a neat 2-step process. First, players roll a 6-sided die to determine their character's social class. A roll of 1 indicates an outsider, 2-3 means lower class, 4-5 is middle class, and a 6 denotes upper class.
Simple enough.
Then, once that's established, they roll again, but this time on the appropriate table for that specific social class. So an outsider character could have a background like bohemian, exile, or outcast. A middle-class character might be an academic, suburbanite, or come from a trade background. And each background then provides tangible benefits. A +1 bonus to an ability score, a choice of 1 of 2 ability focuses, a choice of 1 of 2 talents, and an additional benefit from a specific table tied to that background. This ensures immediate, meaningful mechanical effects stemming directly from their origin story.
And then we move into professions, which sound like they define a character's core skill set and, importantly, their starting resources.
Exactly. And these aren't just labels. They profoundly shape how your character interacts with the world and what they bring to the group. The rulebook lists a wide array: artist, athlete, commander, criminal, explorer, fixer, merchant, politician, scavenger, scholar, soldier, survivalist, technician. Quite a range. And the key differences are immediately apparent in their starting health and their starting resources. For instance, an athlete, a soldier, or an explorer starts with more health, reflecting their physically demanding lives, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Whereas an artist, a criminal, or maybe a fixer, starts with a bit less baseline health.
And resources vary too.
Oh, yes. Resources vary significantly. From a survivalist who might start with minimal or even zero resources, meaning they truly have to live off the land or scavenge, all the way to maybe a politician or a merchant who might begin with considerable wealth, indicating a life of relative affluence and access.
Can you give us a concrete example of how a profession shapes a character's practical skills? What do they actually get?
Absolutely. Let's take the criminal profession again. It immediately grants them a choice of focus: either communication, deception, or one from dexterity like forgery, sleight of hand, or stealth. These aren't just suggestions. They are explicit mechanical benefits that help define their role right away. Furthermore, they gain access to talents like burglary or scouting. This clearly delineates what a character with this profession excels at. It makes it easy for players to grasp their character's identity and role within a group and figure out how they can best contribute using those skills.
And tying all of this together, giving a character their true inner compass, so to speak, are their drives.
Oh.
These represent a character's core motivation, and what's fascinating is that each drive has this duality, a quality and a potential downfall.
Yes, that's a really neat feature.
For example, an achiever character's quality is ambition, which sounds great, but their downfall is obsession. A judge possesses discernment, but risks becoming aloof. A leader is defined by preparedness, but can succumb to cynicism. And a visionary, while having faith in their vision, might fall into destructive zealotry. These drives seem like they provide a constant source of internal conflict and narrative direction, ensuring characters are always evolving or wrestling with themselves.
And to further customize these characters, drives often connect directly to talents and specializations. Talents are unique skills, often with 3 degrees of mastery: novice, expert, and master, each providing increasing benefits as you invest in them. These are versatile skills that can be developed over the course of a campaign. Examples include things like artistry for visual or literary arts, context for knowing people in unexpected places, free running for navigating urban environments, or hacking for dealing with computers and electronics. Lots of useful modern skills.
So talents are specific skills. What are specializations?
Specializations are more like thematic paths that truly flesh out a character concept. Think of them as more specific archetypes, built upon the profession and background. Examples include agent, executive, investigator, martial artist, performer, sniper, socialite, or thief. Much more focused roles. Each specialization comes with its own unique talent and often synergizes well with others, opening up highly specific and effective character builds. For example, the book mentions an agent-sniper specialization combo being a peerless assassin, combining skills from both paths for precision and stealth. This level of detail allows for incredible depth and replayability, ensuring that even characters starting with similar professions can end up feeling vastly different.
So the core takeaway from this whole comprehensive approach to character creation, it seems to ensure that every single character feels unique. They have a rich backstory, clear motivations. It allows players to build someone who isn't just a collection of stats on a page, but a living, breathing person with strengths, flaws, and a real purpose in the story. It truly delivers some profound insights into how deeply a game system can simulate identity, and more importantly, how these simulated identities interact with the ongoing narrative. Okay, so after you've built this unique, detailed character, the next crucial step in setting the scene for an adventure is defining the game mode. And this sounds like a fundamental choice that dramatically alters the feel of the entire campaign. It essentially defines the narrative tone right from the start.
It does. It's a brilliant mechanic.
Because it sets player expectations from the outset, doesn't it? It allows everyone at the table to align on the kind of story they want to tell together.
Exactly. The rulebook distinguishes between 3 primary game modes: gritty, pulpy, and cinematic. And each one offers a distinctly different experience. In gritty mode, the emphasis is squarely on realism and danger. Health, for instance, rarely improves beyond level 1. Characters are fragile. Violence is truly lethal, making combat a genuinely terrifying prospect, something to be avoided if possible.
Makes sense for a gritty feel.
Firearms are more deadly. Characters often have to conserve ammunition, and there's even a rule where missing an attack with a firearm can add to the stunt die value needed to determine if the weapon empties, a clever way to simulate scarcity and tension mechanically. Healing is slow, often requiring proper downtime. Maybe investigations or other narrative progress needs to halt while characters actually recover. And even environmental hazards are more deadly. It all reinforces the harsh reality of the world and pushes players to avoid direct conflict and think very tactically.
So yeah, a single bullet could genuinely end your character, or at least take them out of the fight for a long time in a gritty game. What about something a bit more heroic?
Well, that's where pulpy mode comes in. It offers a middle ground. It's definitely more heroic than gritty, but still feels somewhat grounded in reality. Characters are tougher. They gain health each level, 1 point plus their constitution bonus, and they can replenish lost resource points over time, making them more resilient to setbacks. Attacks inflict an extra +2 damage across the board, adding a bit more punch to conflicts, making things faster and more decisive. Even fragile cover, like a wooden table, works in pulpy mode, though it might get destroyed over time. It maintains a sense of danger without being quite so brutally punishing as gritty.
And then there's cinematic mode. This sounds like where the heroes truly become larger than life, like action movie stars.
Precisely. Cinematic is the most heroic mode by far. It features gravity-defying stunts and incredible fighting moves, as the book puts it. Characters gain significant health each level, rolling a d6 plus constitution up to level 10, and they become even tougher over time, through other means. They can soak up a lot of punishment. Attacks still inflict that flat +2 damage, similar to pulpy, but the cumulative toughness of the characters means they can truly withstand a barrage and keep fighting. And interestingly, some enemies even become classified as mere extras compared to the heroes, signifying their growing power and capacity for these epic, movie-like feats.
You know, to really illustrate the profound difference these modes make, imagine a character fleeing an angry mob, right? In a gritty game, a single solid blow could reduce them to 0 health, and they'd be dying in just 5 rounds unless friends arrived really quickly. The stakes are immediate, brutal, forcing desperation.
Yeah, very tense.
Now, imagine that exact same scenario playing out in cinematic mode. That same character might perform incredible death-defying feats, maybe leaping over obstacles, taking down several pursuers with a single spectacular action, shrugging off minor hits.
Turning the tables.
Exactly. It completely shifts the narrative from a desperate struggle for survival to an exhilarating blockbuster action sequence. Same setup, totally different feel.
And it's worth noting, the GM can even mix and match elements from different modes if they want to really fine-tune the experience. For example, you could have cinematic health advancement, making the heroes tough, but maybe use gritty resource rules, meaning they're always scrambling for cash or gear. That creates its own unique tone.
This whole concept of game modes is just brilliant, I think, because it allows players and the game master to align on the kind of story they want to tell right from the beginning. Do you want the nail-biting tension of a realistic thriller where every decision could be fatal? Or the over-the-top action of a blockbuster movie where heroes defy physics? This simple choice fundamentally changes the stakes and the feel of every single moment in the game. It provides a clear narrative contract for everyone at the table. Okay, so we've discussed how the core engine works, the dice, the stunts, and how characters are built with abilities, focuses, backgrounds, all that identity stuff. Now let's talk about how the narrative itself actually flows within Modern Age, specifically looking at the different types of encounters and challenges the system anticipates.
Right, the structure of play.
The game smartly divides its temporal flow, how time passes, into 2 distinct phases. There's narrative time for general exploration, travel, downtime, basically, when things aren't immediately tense or dramatic, you're just moving the story along. Action time, however, is reserved for those high-stakes, turn-based sequences. Things like combat, complex challenges like disarming a bomb, or any moment where every second really counts.
And the key distinction here, something really crucial for maintaining a good narrative pace, is when the dice actually come out. When do you make a roll? The rulebook specifies that this happens whenever a character's action is important to the story and there's a chance it might fail.
Important and uncertain.
Exactly. This ensures that not every single mundane activity requires a roll. You don't need to roll dice to tie your shoes, unless, maybe, you're trying to tie them while hanging upside down from a speeding train. It keeps the pace engaging and focuses everyone's attention on the moments that truly matter dramatically. It's all about relevance to the story.
Exactly. And one of the most common types of engagement outside of direct combat, especially in modern settings, is exploration encounters. These are scenes focused entirely on gathering information, and the rulebook makes it really clear. Information is power in modern age. This feels particularly true in contemporary settings where data, clues, surveillance, that's often paramount.
Yeah, and a significant part of exploration involves investigations. These can range from pretty simple to quite complex multi-stage affairs. A simple investigation might involve just a single ability test against a set difficulty, the target number, or TN. And succeeding can yield a lot of information quickly if successful. For example, the rulebook describes Jeff the investigator examining a car accident scene. His player, Steve, makes an intelligence explosives test against a TN of 13. Jeff succeeds, and the GM reveals that the pattern of twisted metal indicates it was actually an explosion, not a collision, and that the signature matches the style of a known assassin called the Toll.
Oh, that's a lot from one roll.
It is. It's a massive info dump for one successful roll, but it keeps the story moving efficiently, gets the players onto the next lead, and the importance of those ability focuses we talked about earlier cannot be overstated here. A primary focus like intelligence explosives would be ideal for that situation. However, even tangential focuses can play a role.
Yeah.
They might still allow a roll, but perhaps increase the target number, or maybe success reveals less specific information. So maybe intelligence electronics might give you some information about the detonator components, but not as much insight as the dedicated explosives focus would.
Reward specialization but allows creativity.
Precisely. And the system also includes specific exploration stunts that can enhance investigations. For instance, there's Breakthrough, which costs a hefty 5 stun points.
Yeah.
This doesn't just provide information, it provides incontrovertible proof, something undeniable. And it can even reduce the total number of leads on the path by 1, effectively fast-forwarding the investigation, letting you skip a step.
That's powerful.
Very. Another useful one is cover your tracks for 2 SP, which is essential for things like electronic actions, hacking, or just escaping a scene without leaving evidence behind.
This design really ensures that problem solving and deduction are just as vital as physical prowess, maybe even more so in some campaigns. It highlights how uncovering hidden truths can be an adventure in itself. It provides those satisfying aha moments for the player where their character's intellect shines, not just their ability to punch things. Okay, moving beyond physical exploration and deduction, the game also provides really robust mechanics for what it calls social encounters. These are scenes focused on conversation, intrigue, interpersonal drama, romance, and tense interrogations, all that good stuff.
Now the talky bits.
Right. It's not always about fists and bullets. Sometimes the sharpest weapon is your wit and your charisma.
And to manage these interactions, the system uses concepts like impressions and attitudes. Non-player characters, or NPCs, have attitudes toward the player characters that range all the way from hostile up to very friendly. And this attitude directly influences their willingness to help or hinder the players. Makes sense, right?
Totally.
Factors like a character's reputation can add a bonus for an impressive standing or impose a penalty for an offensive one, affecting those crucial initial impressions. And the GM can also apply other modifiers based on the NPC's own feelings, motives, or the current situation. The rulebook gives a great illustrative example here. Sean, a player character, wants to get a peek at a hotel's guest book. Standard investigative stuff. He smiles broadly at the night manager, chats them up casually, and then his player uses his communication persuasion skill. The GM tells Sean's player he can add a bonus to his roll because the manager currently has an open attitude towards him. Friendly enough. Sean succeeds on his roll against the manager's willpower self-discipline test, and the manager, maybe a bit sheepishly, just swivels the computer screen around for a quick look. This isn't just a simple abstract roll. It's framed as a series of role-played interactions that build trust and leverage the character's specific social skills. It makes social influence feel earned, not just automatic. And more detailed social maneuvers, like trying to significantly change someone's opinion or gain their long-term trust, often require shifts in attitude. You might need to move an NPC gradually from, say, standoffish to neutral, then maybe to open, and finally to friendly over several interactions. Grand gestures, like trying to win over a whole organization, can even be treated as advanced tests, with success thresholds requiring multiple successful rolls over time. For example, Sean attempting to infiltrate the secretive Shadow Masons by gradually shifting the attitude of the Gate Master from standoffish all the way to friendly. This might involve a successful opposed communication persuasion check first, They may be buying the Gatemaster drinks later, requiring resources, then perhaps a successful communication etiquette test at a formal event. Each step chips away at the NPC's resistance, showcasing a really nuanced approach to social progression. It takes effort.
And just like combat and exploration, social encounters have their own specific set of social stunts that add flair and concrete effects to successful actions. These sound fantastic for turning a simple conversation into a dynamic, memorable scene with lasting consequences.
We really are.
For instance, with On the Fence, which costs 2 stunt points, you can convince a currently neutral NPC to actively take your side in a dispute or situation. Or Let's Make a Deal. For 3 SP, which somehow benefits an unintended third-party character who then owes you a significant favor down the line, that creates future narrative hooks.
Yeah, ripple effects.
For a bit of levity, Class Clown costs 4 SP. It lightens the mood in a tense social situation and can even impose a penalty to enemies' initiative rolls if a fight breaks out immediately afterwards.
There's also Flirt for 4 SP, which, as the name suggests, can lead to romantic or intimate possibilities with an NPC who has an open or better attitude. Imagine the dramatic potential and complications there. And for those really daring moments, there's Bad Form. It costs 3 SP, but it allows you to regain those SP plus 1 more, giving you a net gain, while simultaneously offending another character present, instantly shifting their attitude towards you to hostile. It's a high-risk, high-reward move for maximum dramatic impact. Creates instant enemies.
Wow, that's bold.
And finally, benefit of the doubt. At 3 SP allows you to impress or charm an NPC significantly, maybe increasing your reputation or membership bonuses within their organization, and potentially improving their attitude towards you as well.
The ultimate insight here, I think, is that the game really values sharp wit and silver tongues just as much as it values a sharp blade or a quick trigger finger. It provides these robust mechanics for players to actively influence the world through conversation and charisma. It helps create deeply engaging narratives that don't always have to rely on violence to be exciting or meaningful.
Yeah.
It truly shows how nuanced social interaction can be systematized for dramatic effect, making diplomacy, intrigue, and cunning feel just as thrilling as any fight scene. Of course, in the world of modern AGE, sometimes words, well, they're just not enough. Conflicts can sometimes only be settled by bringing fists, blades, and yes, bullets to bear. So let's shift gears and talk about combat and the mechanics that govern those intense action-packed sequences.
Right. Combat is fundamentally built on the same core mechanic, the ability test. There are 2 basic types of attacks, melee for targets right next to you, and ranged for targets you can see and are within your weapon's range. Melee attacks primarily use the fighting ability score, while ranged attacks typically use the accuracy ability. Makes sense. Damage calculation involves the weapon's base damage, which can be modified by things like weapon quality or the current game mode, and then you subtract the opponent's toughness score, derived from constitution, and their armor rating from any armor they're wearing. And the system cleverly distinguishes between ballistic damage, like from bullets, which generally ignores non-ballistic armor, like maybe leather or padding, and penetrating damage, like from certain high-powered rounds or maybe supernatural attacks, which ignores all armor. This adds a layer of tactical realism to weapon and armor choices. The rulebook details various armor types, each with specific impact I and ballistic B protection ratings. This means everything from light, maybe concealable, bullet-resistant cloth, all the way up to heavy steel plate, or even a specialized bomb suit offers distinct advantages and disadvantages against different types of attacks. It forces players to strategically consider their loadout based on the specific threats they anticipate facing.
So you can't just wear one type of armor and be safe from everything.
Pretty much no. For example, bullet-resistant cloth might provide moderate protection against both impact, like fists or clubs, and ballistic threats, bullets, maybe a 2i4b rating. Whereas steel plate might offer excellent impact resistance, say 8i, but be much less effective against bullets, maybe only 1b, and it's heavy and obvious. You have to choose.
So the type of armor really changes how effective an attack is. Players definitely have to think about their loadout and maybe even what their opponents are likely wearing or using. What about firearms themselves? They must be a big part of modern combat.
Oh, absolutely. Firearms are a major component, and the rate of fire statistic is crucial here. Single shot means 1 bullet per trigger pull, like a bolt-action rifle. Semi-automatic allows multiple shots with distinct trigger pulls, like most pistols or assault rifles. And automatic allows continuous fire as long as you hold the trigger down, like a submachine gun. These classifications affect how attacks are resolved, how many targets you might hit, and how much damage can potentially be dealt in a single turn. It creates a clear mechanical distinction between different weapon types and their tactical uses. Then you have things like grenades. The book notes they're uncommon due to purchase restrictions, but certainly not rare in many settings. Unlike aimed weapons, you don't usually need a direct hit. You just need to get the grenade close enough to catch targets in the blast radius. They come in different types. Blast grenades are primarily concussive, affecting a 5-yard radius. Fragmentation grenades throw shrapnel over a wider 15-yard radius, making them more lethal. And incendiary grenades deal fire damage over time within a 5-yard radius. And notably, your perception ability doesn't add to grenade damage rolls, emphasizing their indiscriminate area of effect nature. You just lob it and hope for the best, basically.
And for those high-octane pursuits, the thrilling car chases we see in movies, the game also includes rules for vehicular combat, right?
Yes, it does. Vehicles themselves can provide cover, ranging from minimal cover for something like a motorcycle, maybe 0, up to significant cover for a hardtop car or truck, maybe 2. And you can perform ram attacks, allowing vehicles to sideswipe or collide directly with other vehicles or even pedestrians, unfortunately. The damage inflicted is based on relative velocity classes: standard, fast, very fast, or extreme. A fast car hitting something deals more damage than, say, a bicycle hitting something.
Obviously.
These collisions can also generate stunt points, just like other successful actions, which can then be spent on specific anti-vehicle stunts for pulling off cinematic driving maneuvers or targeting specific parts of an enemy vehicle.
But you know, bullets and fists and car crashes aren't the only threats player characters might face in a modern or historical setting. They might contend with falling from heights, fires, explosions, hazardous materials. The rulebook handles these environmental dangers under the general header of hazards, correct?
That's right. Hazards are categorized quite simply by their potential damage output, ranging from minor, maybe 1d6 damage, up to murderous, a terrifying 66 damage, indicating escalating levels of danger. Examples given range from something like a floor littered with broken glass, minor hazard, to a 10-foot fall, moderate, a pipe bomb explosion, major, a serious freeway car crash, arduous, stepping on a landmine, harrowing, and finally being caught inside a collapsing building, murderous.
Gives you a scale of danger.
Exactly. And importantly, characters can often mitigate the damage from hazards by making a successful ability test, maybe dexterity to dodge falling debris, or constitution to resist a toxin. Success usually means they suffer only half the potential damage, allowing for those heroic escapes or toughing it out through sheer grit.
And finally, on the combat front, what happens when the fight just gets too intense for the participants? Do people just fight to the death every time?
Not necessarily. That's where morale tests come into play. And these apply primarily to NPCs, the non-player characters controlled by the GM. These tests determine their willingness to keep fighting, especially when things look bad, like when more than half their side is down, or perhaps their leader falls dramatically in combat. Failure might mean they flee, surrender, or just become ineffective. And interestingly, in gritty games, there's even an optional rule for player characters to make morale tests under extreme duress, simulating the psychological toll of intense danger and fear. It adds another layer of realism and consequence to the combat experience in that mode.
This whole section really reveals the sheer scope of threats and protective measures the system accounts for. It's clearly designed to create intense, dynamic action sequences. Whether you find yourself in a close-quarters brawl in an alley, a high-speed chase down a highway, or frantically trying to disarm a ticking bomb in a collapsing building.
That covers a lot.
And it seems to respect your time by having these different levels of detail depending on the dramatic needs of the situation. So you're not necessarily bogged down in minute-by-minute tracking when the narrative calls for quick, high-impact action, but the detail is there if you need it. Okay, so with all these intricate mechanics in place for action, characters, social interaction, combat hazards, someone needs to orchestrate the whole experience. This brings us neatly to the Game Master's art, the crafting and guiding of the story. The GM truly acts as the story's architect, don't they? Using various story structures to shape the narrative flow.
Absolutely. The GM is pivotal. And the rulebook outlines several flexible structures they can use. Location-based stories are perhaps the simplest to run. Here, a map maybe of a building, a dungeon, a small town, acts as a kind of flowchart for the adventure, guiding players to a physical space with encounters tied to specific locations. Easy to visualize and manage. Then there are scene-based stories, which are more like a sequence of predetermined events or key moments. This ensures a specific narrative arc is followed, though player actions within scenes can still vary wildly. Good for hitting specific plot points. Social stories, as their name suggests, focus primarily on interpersonal drama, intrigue, and politics. really leveraging those social encounter mechanics we discussed earlier to great effect. But one particularly robust and flexible structure, especially suited for detection, mystery, or espionage narratives, is the Trail of Breadcrumbs.
Intriguing name.
It is. Here, the GM leaves clues, maybe a dropped matchbook with a phone number, a hidden listening bug, a cryptic letter that lead the players from one location or person to the next. Finding a clue in one setting might provide multiple options or leads for the next step, creating this branching, player-driven investigation. Players follow the clues where they lead. This structure beautifully balances player agency with narrative direction. It makes players feel like genuine detectives putting the pieces together themselves.
And beyond the overarching structure, the GM has this constant task of making the abstract dice rolls meaningful within the story itself. This is what the rulebook calls framing game mechanics. As you said, an attack roll isn't just math. It represents a character actually shooting a gun or slugging an enemy. It's all about how you describe the success or failure of that roll to make it feel real and impactful.
And this is absolutely where the GM's artistry truly shines. The rulebook gives a really powerful example of this. If a character, let's call her Indra, is edging along a narrow skyscraper ledge and is about to fall, instead of just one single roll to see if she lives or dies, the GM breaks it down into multiple tension-building rolls. Maybe one dexterity test to catch herself as she slips, then perhaps another strength test to find a secure handhold. All while the GM is vividly describing the gusts of wind, the feeling of the bottom falling out of her stomach, or maybe a sudden slip on a patch of bird droppings adds that gritty detail.
Makes it much more intense.
Exactly. This isn't just rolling dice. It's creating a vivid, cinematic sequence designed purely to heighten tension and make every single moment count. And importantly, the GM can also suggest alternate strategies if a roll fails. Maybe Indra fails to find a handhold, but the GM suggests she could try surrendering to the investigators waiting inside the window she was trying to avoid. This ensures that failure never means the absolute end of the adventure, only perhaps a change in its direction, often making things more complicated and interesting.
So the core takeaway here is that the game master is not just a referee enforcing rules. They are a co-storyteller, a director, a world builder, constantly adapting to player choices, and ensuring every moment, from a single dice roll to an entire campaign arc, feels dramatic and significant.
It's a big job.
It really is. It's like a masterclass in dynamic narrative construction, constantly balancing the need for structure with the emergent story being created collaboratively by everyone at the table. Now, guiding such a dynamic experience requires not just narrative prowess, but also some practical tools and principles for actually managing the game at the table effectively. The rulebook provides some excellent down-to-earth advice for game masters in this area too, doesn't it?
It does. Very practical stuff. For information management, for instance, the GM is advised to use quick reference sheets. Keep track of essential stats for player characters and important NPCs, things like combat values, health, abilities, armor ratings. This prevents constant page flipping during tense moments and keeps key information right there at a glance. Similarly, using initiative cards, simple 3x5 index cards, is recommended for tracking turn order during action time. You can even jot down temporary spell durations or status effects on them. You just write the initiative score on the card, maybe the character name, stack them in order, and flip through them each round. It makes combat flow much more smoothly.
Simple but effective.
Very. Whiteboards are also suggested, especially early in a campaign, for tracking the main player characters and the major NPCs, the key players in the story. It just helps everyone at the table keep track of who's who and maybe current relationship statuses or objectives. A really crucial GM principle discussed is handling failure. The rulebook emphasizes that failure should always be meaningful. It should have consequences, but it should never deny access to the adventure. It shouldn't bring the story to a dead stop.
That sounds critical.
It is. If the heroes failed their role to break into a military base using the front door, the story doesn't end. Perhaps they now must hide and wait for someone important to come out, creating a new opportunity. Or maybe they find an anonymous tip left for them, leading them to an unguarded service entrance, but maybe into a different kind of danger. The story always moves forward, even if it's in an unexpected or perhaps more difficult direction. This prevents those frustrating dead ends and keeps players engaged, ensuring the narrative never just grinds to a halt because of one bad roll.
That's absolutely vital for a flowing narrative experience. What about creating atmosphere? How do you make the world feel real without getting bars down and just reciting endless descriptions?
That's where the principle of kicking details comes in. The advice is quite sharp. Pick very few things that imply bigger, wider concepts, rather than attempting exhaustive encyclopedic descriptions of every room or person. For instance, describing a powerful general's office. Instead of listing every item, just mention a huge mahogany desk, maybe a copy of Machiavelli's The Prince prominently displayed on the corner, and a gleaming gold cigar cutter resting nearby.
Paints a picture quickly.
Immediately, those three details imply wealth, ruthlessness, a certain coldness, and an affinity for political theory and power. Players will naturally fill in the rest of the gaps in their own minds. It creates this illusion of depth and allows the GM to focus description on the most impactful, character-revealing details. Another powerful tool mentioned is leveraging familiarity. Using modern or familiar historical settings is a great strength of the system. Players can use their existing knowledge. They could organize a heist in a coffee shop they know of in real life, using their understanding of its layout. Or in a 1930s New York game, they might ask to meet Lucky Luciano to make a deal, drawing on historical context. This familiarity sparks creative solutions from the players and allows them to draw upon their casual knowledge, making the stories feel richer, more grounded, and more relatable.
And finally, there's a very important principle discussed, crucial for any collaborative storytelling environment, really.
Indeed, and that's inclusivity. It's paramount. The rulebook stresses that the GM has a responsibility to be inclusive and to respect player comfort levels. This means actively checking with players, maybe even before the game starts or before introducing certain themes, about any potentially hot-button issues or sensitive topics, including historical discrimination if you're playing in certain eras. The goal is to ensure that no situation in play must appear to endorse bigotry. It's about creating a safe, respectful, and enjoyable space for everyone at the table.
Essential.
It involves encouraging players to speak up if something in the game makes them uncomfortable, and the GM being prepared to listen and adjust the narrative accordingly. It fosters a genuinely shared and enjoyable, imaginative experience for all involved.
This whole deep dive into the GMing section reveals that running a game like this is truly an art form in itself. It's about so much more than just knowing the rules. It's about active listening, empathy, creative problem solving on the fly, and ultimately facilitating a shared imaginative experience.
It's a juggling act.
It really is. It's this constant dance between providing structure and embracing freedom, guiding the narrative while simultaneously letting it organically grow and surprise everyone at the table, including the GM themselves. Now, what truly elevates the modern AGE system, I think, is its incredible versatility. It isn't confined to just one type of story or even one specific time period. It offers detailed frameworks for running games in nearly any modern or historical setting imaginable. It demonstrates remarkable adaptability.
That's absolutely one of its greatest strengths. The rulebook provides this sweeping overview of potential genres and historical eras, each with its own unique feel, potential challenges, and often suggesting which game mode, gritty, pulpy, or cinematic, might be best suited to capture that specific flavor. The core genres it supports cover a huge range. There's adventure, which is all about nonstop action, exotic locations, maybe uncovering ancient secrets, drawing inspiration from things like Indiana Jones or Mission Impossible, classic high-energy stuff. Then there's alternate history, which opens the door to fascinating what-if scenarios. What if the Nazis won WWII? What if early computers were invented a century earlier? It allows for boundless creative freedom within recognizable historical frameworks. You've got heists, which naturally emphasize camaraderie, careful planning, and ingenuity, perfectly utilizing the system's detailed breaching rules for handling complex infiltration and security systems. Think Ocean's 11. Horror is interestingly divided into cosmic horror, focusing on those unknowable Lovecraftian entities, sanity-bending cults, and terrifying revelations. And folk horror, which deals more with isolated communities, witches, ancient pagan conspiracies, and a creeping sense of quiet dread. Two very different horror vibes.
Yeah, distinct flavors.
Then there's post-apocalyptic, exploring survival, rebuilding, and conflict after civilization's collapse. Procedural focuses on solving mysteries, methodical investigations, piecing together clues, much like TV shows like CSI or Law & Order. And finally, urban fantasy delves into worlds where the supernatural magic, monsters, hidden societies coexists, often secretly, with our mundane modern society. Magic in the streets of New York or London.
It's really astonishing how it seems to adapt to so many different tones and themes using the same core engine. How does it handle specific historical periods? Does it provide guidance to make them feel distinct?
It does. The rulebook breaks down recent history into several distinct eras, offering specific campaign frameworks within each one, often tailored to different modes. For instance, for the period 1600 to 1820, labeled the Age of Reason, we find frameworks like the High Seas, perfect for pirate adventures full of thrilling sword fights, black powder weapons, maybe a dash of superstition, often suggested for cinematic or pulpy mode. Folk horror is also set primarily in this period, emphasizing those historical witch panics, quiet rural dread, and dark rituals in isolated villages. That's typically a gritty experience. And Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité covers the age of revolutions, stories of espionage, smuggling aristocrats fighting for freedom against tyranny. That often leans toward the pulpy tone, allowing for heroic action amid societal upheaval. Moving forward into 1837-1914, dubbed the Victorian Age and beyond, the system offers frameworks like the West, your classic frontier setting with gunfights, saloon brawls, wild chases across rugged landscapes. Could be gritty or pulpy. Steampunk brings in airship pirates, steam-powered velocipedes, mad inventors, and technological wonder mixed with Victorian sensibilities. That usually fits a more adventurous pulpy or even cinematic style. And Gaslight delves into bloody murders, occult conspiracies, and shadowy societies operating in fog-shrouded, gaslit cities like London or Paris. A prime setting for gritty or pulpy detective stories with a dark, potentially supernatural twist.
And what about the tumultuous 20th century? That saw so much dramatic change, so many potential settings.
Absolutely. The period between the wars, roughly 1918-1939, features frameworks like cosmic horror again, perhaps focusing on the trauma of WWI, feeding into encounters with unknowable alien entities and sanity-shattering revelations, often best suited for gritty play to emphasize the fragility of the human mind. Noir plunges characters into those classic mean streets filled with corrupt cops, dangerous femmes fatales, cynical private eyes, and moral ambiguity. Perfect for gritty or pulpy modes, allowing for those morally gray narratives. And Treasure Hunters and Rocketeers provides a more explicitly cinematic framework where heroic archaeologists race against sinister Nazi agents seeking powerful ancient artifacts, or maybe early rocket scientists building experimental craft. Pure, thrilling pulp adventure. Finally, covering the Cold War, roughly 1945-1990, the rulebook presents Red Scares and hidden areas. This framework is full of potential for conspiracies, UFO sightings, mysterious men in black, secret government experiments like MKUltra, maybe even brainwashed assassins. This can be played gritty for deep, paranoid espionage thrillers, or maybe pulpy for a weirder, more action-packed take on classic conspiracy theories, allowing players to explore the paranoia, secrets, and shadow conflicts of that entire era.
This sheer breadth really demonstrates the immense flexibility of the modern AG framework. It's truly a testament to how a well-designed core system can serve as a canvas for an almost infinite number of stories, adapting its mechanics, its tone, through things like game modes and focuses, to suit the specific feel and challenges of pretty much any setting you can imagine from recent history or the present day.
It's quite impressive.
It really makes you consider how narrative structures themselves, the very rules of a game, can be intentionally tuned to evoke different emotional impacts, allowing for everything from a truly gritty, terrifying horror story to a swashbuckling pirate adventure, all using the same fundamental rule set. So, we've journeyed through the intricate design of the Modern AGE Basic Rulebook. We've discovered how a tabletop game, seemingly just rules on paper, can offer a profound understanding of narrative structure, of character development, and the complex art of shared storytelling. From the simple elegance of the 3d6 system and that clever stunt die that adds immediate cinematic flair, to the detailed layers of character identity forged through goals, ties, relationships, backgrounds, professions, and those internal drives.
A lot of layers.
We've explored how game modes fundamentally alter the narrative's tone, setting expectations from the start, and how different encounter types, be they careful investigations, tense social intrigues, or explosive combat sequences, are meticulously designed to flow within the story, each with its own unique mechanics and stunts. And we've seen the game master's absolutely essential role, not just as a referee calling out numbers, but as an architect, a director, and truly a co-storyteller. Armed with practical tools and guiding principles to create vibrant, immersive experiences, to manage failure constructively, and to handpick those evocative details that imply deeper, richer worlds. Finally, the system's incredible adaptability across all those genres and historical eras truly opens up a multiverse of potential stories, from high seas piracy in the 1700s to Cold War conspiracies in the 1980s.
You know, if a simple set of rules and dice, fundamentally, can bring such vibrant, complex worlds and characters to life, making the impossible seem real, right there on a game table, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What hidden truths might a mere roll of the dice or a framework like this reveal about the stories we tell ourselves every day, about the worlds we create, whether they're on a game table or perhaps in our own lives?
That's a really powerful thought to leave you with, and I think a perfect encapsulation of what we aim to explore here on the Uncanny Valley podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this extraordinary exploration today. This has been the Uncanny Valley podcast. We'll see you next time.